before the executive order actually takes effect. And so the idea behind that was to try to avoid any sort of chaos or confusion or people trying to understand whether or not the executive order is actually going to be implemented or not. So, but like I said, it's going to be up to Judge Watson as far as how he decides to rule on that. But we appreciate Judge Watson for doing that. I appreciate the Department of Justice for going along with this schedule. Other than that, I also understand that Washington and New York have also they also are challenging the new travel ban. Washington is arguing that the existing nationwide injunction has not been lifted just because there were certain, it's not just their words, but the words that were made by the administration, because there were certain tweaks made to the executive order. So that's we totally appreciate the Washington AG for really, leading the way from the very beginning on this issue, and then we understand that the New York Attorney General's office has also joined them. So we were very grateful to Bob Ferguson in Washington State, as well as Eric Schneiderman in New York for their efforts. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say. I know that you have the press release, you have the arguments. I don't want to speechify too long. So if you guys have some questions, I'm happy to help you out.
Will you be arguing on Wednesday? And
thank you.
What about if it goes to the Ninth Circuit
right.
and beyond?
Yeah, thank you for your question. The telephonic access is allowed. So my understanding is I think that the Department of Justice will be participating by telephone. And then we also have special DC counsel that we were able to obtain through a procurement. It's Neil Katyal. He's the former acting Solicitor General under the Obama administration. And so we're talking about that right now. Ultimately, who argues the case is actually up to the judge. I mean, he's the one who tells us how much time we have to argue and whether or not we can split the argument. But I'm hopeful that we can do a split argument. But that's where it goes.
Just to make it clear, are you enjoined then with Washington and New York?
No. So we have a separate. Our lawsuit has always been separate, and our lawsuit has always been separate, and then we're going to so we're having ours proceed right now in front of the federal district court here. That's Judge Watson, and then the Washington case, of which New York and Oregon and Minnesota have all joined, will be proceeding in front of. I think Judge Robart. Actually, I haven't seen Washington's motion, so I don't. I probably shouldn't speak too much about it, other than to be grateful that they're doing what they're doing.
But Hawaii filed an amicus brief for the Washington
We did.
one. And
we did.
Can other states, or will other states join Hawaii?
We'll see. I think it's. I can tell you right now. One thing I see happening is that there are a lot of issues that are buzzing around the country right now. So there's probably a lot of the conversation is having to deal with the Affordable Care Act and potential litigation that might be around that. So we'll see what they do. If they, I have gotten requests to join in as amicus from. I think you have to wait to see before they file. But I have gotten those requests, and basically we've already agreed with the U.S. that will allow any amicus to be filed, and we won't object to it, even if it's contrary to our positions.
Has the legal basis for your second lawsuit changed from the first?
It's similar, but I would say that's a good. I appreciate you asking that. I mean, this is how I would summarize it. I'd say what our argument is that when the President Trump and the administration changed the executive order from the first one to the second, first of all, they didn't take away the same discrimination based upon national origin and religion that is so problematic. They replaced it with a lot of neutral language, but that's not going to be enough in our arguments or in our opinions to be able to erase a lot of the past statements that were made where this was just referred to, in their words, in President Trump's words, as a Muslim ban. So that's one part of our argument. But the other thing is that what we're saying is that in trying so hard to react to the Ninth Circuit opinion that came out. In other words, the Ninth Circuit opinion had certain rulings about how we shouldn't violate people's due process, and we should really respect all those things. So this new executive order has a lot of a more expansive description of waivers and exemptions. And so our point about that is that now what the administration has done is they've set up a new immigration system that has no standards, that is something, and also is invading the province of Congress. So it's a little bit of a, I've got to say it's more of a checks and balances type argument, but from a legal standpoint, it's exactly right. Congress, under Article 1 of the Constitution, is actually the branch of government that is supposed to be making laws and establishing the immigration system, or the ability of aliens to enter or remain into the country. And so what's happening is that by setting up basically new standards for what's a terrorist, what's presumed to be a terrorist, or who's going to be allowed to enter or not enter, then the administration is stepping into what Congress has been set apart to do. So that's my attempt to try to explain what's in our brief, and I'm happy to keep trying to explain that, but that's what it's all about.
Attorney General, it's now the second bite at the apple for the Trump administration on the so-called travel ban.
Right.
In your opinion, what would cure any defects to make it legal?
Right. Simply put, it's don't. I think if you want to protect our national security, that's great. I think all of us in the United States care about the security of our nation, the security of our borders. We here in the state of Hawaii, we care about the security of our state. But don't bring us back to a time that occurred prior to the 1960s, when laws and immigration was passed that was based upon people based upon their national origin. So what I want to say about that is that in 1965, which was 1 year before I was born, then Congress passed the Immigration and a new provision in the Immigration and Nationality Act, which basically abolished any sort of racial bias or any sort of nation of origin bias. And it's in our brief, so I can't tell you what page it's on, but it's there. And the point of it is that if you're going back to this executive order now, this is, in our arguments, we're saying this is the first time a president has made such a broad, sweeping kind of executive order that bans people purely based upon their nationality. In other words, it's saying if you're from one of these 6 countries, now 6, you are presumptively a terrorist. And to us, that's bringing us back to a time before I was even born, a time that our prior generation lived under. That's a dark chapter that I don't believe we should repeat.
Joe, one follow-up. How do you respond to the argument that these people who will be traveling from these countries don't have any rights under our Constitution? Right. So that they have less rights, certainly, and it's kind of a sliding scale. But the other people who do have rights are the people who are in this country, who are unable to see their loved ones or unable to leave the country because they're on a visa and then not know whether they can come back because they're going to have to get another visa. So because they're now going to be subject to this, like I said, this standardless new immigration system that's been put in place by the executive order that wasn't what Congress envisioned. So that's really where it comes up. And so the example of that, Sean, is Dr. El-Sheikh. It's the fact that the imam has his mother-in-law who still doesn't have a visa and is still unable to enter the country because of the fact that she doesn't have a visa.
Your first filing, I think, made issue of our geography. Is that still a consideration?
Yes, it's in our. I actually, thank you. I think that's. I feel like what makes Hawaii special is its ethnic diversity, absolutely, and I've talked about that before. But I think the other point about Hawaii is that because what we do is we depend so much on air travel to be able to travel from one state to another, or frankly to even get between counties. I mean, just to go from island to island, we need to get on air travel. One of the things that is actually mentioned in the declarations from the Hawaii residents that are concerned about this travel ban is that they're not even sure they can go through TSA, or they're feeling discouraged or concerned that they can't even go through TSA without bumping up against a federal official who might stop them or hold them for some purpose. And it's that second-class citizenship. It's that different kind of it's what I call like kind of a cultural smearing, where now you have another set of rules for people from a certain country that is so concerning. And so geography plays a big part of that because really even to get off the island of Oahu, you have to go through a federal official in order to be able to get to another island.
But the fact that it's not a customs person per se?
Well, and that would be for coming into the country. But I think the point that we're trying to make is that it's the fear that's generated. It's the discouragement from being able to travel freely that's set up because of this.
How strong is the tourism argument in your lawsuit? Can you
Right.
elaborate a little bit more on that? Do you feel
Sure.
that you have the support of general Hawaii population to pursue this?
Right. Thank you. Well, let's see. You're saying how strong is the tourism? The tourism. I think that is also something that's a little more unique about our arguments than the other states. Is that we are a state that relies so heavily on tourism and the ability of people to travel. So where it comes into play is people's economic it's the state's ability to maintain its economy. So what we're doing is we're saying that the state is injured because there's already reports saying that due to these executive orders, then travel ban, then people are less inclined to travel to the United States, and so. To us, the reason why that argument is strong is because it's such a big part of our economy. The other state, Minnesota, for example, they rely more upon their universities being impacted, the ability for them to be able to, grow and thrive in their educational environment. We have that same problem too, but we also have the problem with people's tourism, traveling abilities. Then you also asked me about whether or not, I feel like I have the support of the people. I can tell you this is the feedback that I get. First of all, I think my sense is most people they get it. They get that there is a big this is something they get that this is an argument that we just can't stand silent on. This is an executive order that just reminds. It reminds us of a past that we don't want to repeat. It brings us back to a chapter that we don't want to be involved in, and so that's the reason why we say what we say. I think other people, respectfully, or maybe not so respectfully, will point out, that this is not something that should concern Hawaii. That we shouldn't be getting involved in this, and that it's a waste. I'll tell you why. And I also want to say this is I think that there's even some negative feedback that I'll get saying that this is just political. This is just part of a Democrat agenda, to be able to undermine what the president is trying to accomplish. I don't see that at all. I just want, for the record, I don't see this as a Democrat thing or an agenda thing. I see it as a racist thing. I see it as if Hawaii doesn't speak up about discrimination by national origin, we are dishonoring and we are disrespecting what the past generation has gone through. If we were to just allow something like this to happen and just stay silent and say, let's let other people fight this battle, I don't think it's I don't think it's right. I don't think it's a respectful way to appreciate what our history has been and what we've been through. I don't want to be over dramatic and talk about the past, but the timing of this couldn't be worse. It really came up 75 years after President Roosevelt's executive order. I mean, literally the anniversary, of the executive order that resulted in the internment of Japanese Americans and German Americans and Italian Americans. For something like this to happen again 75 years later is just something that we don't want to go back to that.
Attorney General,
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
point of clarification.
Sure.
So Congress has the jurisdiction over the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The executive branch has national security rights. So what is the burden of proof?
Right.
You have to prove that the executive branch does not have.
Right. Let me. I'll try to reframe it a little bit. Think of it like this, and it's like if you think about the branches of government, it's really Congress that makes laws, and it's the executive branch or the president that enforces it. So I get that all the time in the state. It's the legislature that makes our laws, and really the executive branch is just supposed to enforce it and carry it out. So part of our objection to this is that what's very specific is that Congress, under the Constitution, is the one that sets up the immigration that's in place. But what's happening with this executive order is basically the president is making law. He's creating a standardless system of waivers and exemptions and a way to define what is a terrorist or what is presumptively a terrorist that's different from what Congress set up as the terrorist standards. And so it's a checks and balances argument, but checks and balances is a very strong legal argument.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There may be some people who are uncomfortable that we are challenging
Yeah.
it and using taxpayers' money. Do
Right.
you have a better handle on it today as to how much your office is budgeted
Right.
for this lawsuit?
So right now the contract is budgeted at 150. It's capped at 150,000. So right now, we have not received a bill that has hit the cap. Mr. Katyal and whatever associates are working with him are working at severely reduced rates. Frankly, because I think this is just a really important issue to them as well. So there you go. It is. I think I have to disclose that I would have the ability to amend that contract and to raise the cap if we ever get to that point.
What percentage is that of the litigation budget?
Oh goodness. I think our litigation budget is 1 point. I'm gonna have to clarify that for you, but I think it's like 1.7 million, something like that.
Does the 150,000 include the first complaint?
Yes.
Work on the
Yes, it did.
first
It did. Correct.
And the fact that we're arguing our motion just the day before this ban is supposed to go into
Right.
effect?
I think that's just the tight time frame that we have. I mean, the order just came out a few days ago. We got our filing in yesterday. There's really only a certain, the U.S. we have to give the United States enough time to be able to respond, and so that's the time that we worked out, and the judge went along with it.
In terms of what happens to the Washington case, anything that happens over there, do you think that's going to make an impact on what's going to happen?
Right. If something happened in the Washington case that allowed the nationwide injunction to stay in place, I'd be very happy. It is not important to me that Hawaii be the one that has the legal argument that wins. It's more important that the current injunction just remains in place.
So is this your office's top priority?
No, I think my top priority is to represent the people of the state of Hawaii, and I believe that this is part of I believe this is part of that priority. And I'll say this: it's because it's this kind of this kind of executive order. It affects our society and our culture, and just really everything that Hawaii stands for. I mean, I'm probably overstating it, but I just think that Hawaii has a long history of appreciating and respecting a society of non-discrimination. It's in our history, it's in our Constitution, it's in our policies and laws, and so for the federal government to come in with something that is so blatantly discriminatory, so from the very start was a Muslim ban, is just something that it offends our sovereignty, and so yes, I do think it's I think it's an important priority. Can I say it's more important than what's happening in the legislature right now? Probably not, because I there's a lot of very important things happening there as well. But I've got great deputies that are thinking about that as well.
In terms of the tourism argument again, so your argument basically is that this change will make a huge impact on foreign tourism, but by that token, if you take that argument, federal government wouldn't be able to do make any change in immigration law. How do you respond to that? Right.
It's the argument. Let me see if I can lay it out like this. The argument is that what's happening is national origin discrimination, or it violates the Immigration Act. And so because of that violation, then there's certain harms that are happening. And that harm that happens to our state, and actually from a legal standpoint, whether it's a big harm or a little harm, any sort of harm is a harm. So in other words, you've got something that's happening that is against the Constitution and against the law, and it's negatively impacting us. That's our argument of standing.
Has your office put anything on the back burner in terms of other endeavors by the Attorney General's office that they would typically pursue?
No, I don't think so. You'll have to catch me on that, but I'm going to cabinet meetings. I'm still, in fact, I'm going in half an hour. So I think I'm still being involved. I hope that's not the case. And I realize and take very seriously that that it's important that we we think about all the aspects of the state. Actually, frankly, that's part of the reason why we needed special counsel. This just isn't in our bandwidth, to be able to handle. We're not as big as Washington or New York or California or Massachusetts or any of those offices.
What is the workload breakdown between special counsel and your office?
Everybody has been working on very little sleep. I think that's the breakdown. And so we don't keep track of our hours. I'd have to get back to you on what the private lawyers are doing in their hours. That just is part of the reason why there's so little sleep. Yeah, but my team has been I'm going to say Deirdre Marie Iha, Donna Kalama, Josh Wish, Clyde Wadsworth, my new Solicitor General, Kimberly Guidry, Robert Nakasuji has been helping out a little bit. James is over there. It was just, so in other words, there's been a I promise you this is not, it's not been these DC people are handling this and we're just we just file it. It's not that at all. I think if anything we've really we've been very involved.
And do you know the top billable rate for the DC Special Counsel?
I don't.
You said the Justice Department has until Monday, or they have until Monday to answer to this. What happens once they answer? Then what's the process?
Right. Okay. So they'll answer, and then we'll get a reply, just because we're the people who are moving for the TRO. But we don't get. It's not very long. I think we only get like less than 24 hours to respond back, and then Wednesday we'll make our arguments. There is no guarantee that the judge will rule at that time. That's entirely up to the court.
So the judge will lay out time of argument
Yes.
on each side of that.
Correct.
But with the telephonic access, are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there. And then I think we just got to work out whether or not he lets us split our arguments. I don't anticipate making the entire argument, frankly, but I'd like to say something. So I hope I get to be part of it.
And what's the status with the imam's mother-in-law's visa? She has an application for the petition that was approved?
Right. Her petition, she had an application that was held up for a very long time. After the injunction first went into effect, then one day later, after not hearing for months and months, then she heard that she'd been moved to the next stage. And then ever since then, she hasn't heard anything. So she still doesn't have a visa. And if anything, now she's part of this, like I say, a standardless set of waivers and exemptions that weren't set by Congress.
her intention just to visit or to emigrate, or?
You'd have to ask them.
And the imam is on a visa himself?
No, the imam is a citizen.
Okay, so he could go back.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Right.
With the other states on the mainland having some greater resources to draw on, why did Hawaii decide to plunge ahead?
Right. Right. Sure. I really, I did not believe that this was the type of case that Hawaii should be silent on. I can tell you right now that there are so many, there are many executive policies that are coming, or that we can look at and we can say that they're illegal or that they're unconstitutional. But I truly believe that we need to pick our battles, and so I could see other issues coming in from the federal government where I might be saying, this is something that the other states can handle, and we're going to,
All right, everyone. Looks like that feed has frozen. Stand by.
People's universities, and that's all very important. But I think they need to hear that there's a state where ethnic diversity is the norm, where people are welcomed with aloha and respect, and I believe that argument needs to be front and center. I'll take I can even think of a follow-up question that you might have, which is that, well, then why don't we just, write a letter or something like that? But I think there is something about Hawaii, being involved directly, that does make a statement to the court and to the, really our people, that we care about this issue. More than just weighing in amongst the thousands of other people that care about it. We want this issue to be front and center.
What about Hawaii's Muslim population community? How is it unique? Is this lawsuit an opportunity for you to know more about this community?
Through this lawsuit, I've met our Muslim members of the Muslim community here, and I can tell you they are amazing people. They are really special. They're going through a tough time, and they are part of our community, and they should not be labeled presumptively as terrorists. This is just not that is not something that our state should be. Certainly we're not going to advocate for that, but it's not something that our state should just be saying that we're going to be silent about.
It's a small for people who aren't familiar
Right.
with Hawaii. It's a small community
Right.
here.
It is. It's small, but it's there. But I got to say this is that the other thing that we're challenging is it's sort of this it's this assertion of executive powers that from a legal standpoint we don't we feel like we need to challenge. Like I've already laid out, I don't want to keep talking about separation of powers, but it's this assertion, this over-assertion of powers by the president. The president is not the king. He's not a dictator. We all learned that in social studies growing up. And so the concern about this executive order is that even though it's just for 120 days, it can be easily renewed. It can be renewed for another 120 days and just become permanent or perpetual. There's also provisions in the executive order that have the Department of Homeland Security looking at doing a report on what are all the other countries that could potentially be on this travel ban, and so including those as well, or adding.
All right, everyone. Looks like we have lost that feed from the Hawaiian Attorney General. If we get it back, we'll take you back to that event. In the meantime, we're going to take you to an event happening here in the greater Phoenix area, a press conference on the 2-year-old who was severely burned in a fire yesterday. stand by for that momentarily. All right, it looks like we have that Hawaii Attorney General press conference back, so we're going to dip into that once again.
And is that something that you feel that needs to, like, their ability, or ability to travel, ability to...
Right. Okay. You know what I think about that is that people have, it's this idea that what's being set up now is a system where there's certain races that are going to be presumptively in a second-class type of environment, and there will be a superior race that is running everything, and so I think that's the concern. That's part of the concern that's happening is that if and I'll tell you why. It's when I heard Jeff Sessions talk last week. I was in D.C. and so his speech was this, and I've got it in my notes. Essentially, his speech was crime is on the uprise, which I didn't know if that was true, but he said crime is on the uprise. It's being committed by people who are unlawfully in this country. So if we remove people who are unlawfully in this country,